Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hey, as I as I work through some of these locomotives that I bought from the MTH warehouse sale a couple months back, just wanted to kind of show you what the next one I'm going to be working on is. This is a 3-volt Protoson 2 GP60M. And like that U25 project that I worked on, this one came from MTH, all primered up. Had some questions and gave it a lot of thought. I didn't want to rush into anything as to what I was going to do with this guy. And you can see what I have right here, so you can obviously see the route that I'm going to take. I thought about painting it, and I was actually leaning to painting this into Pan Am blue and doing a Pan Am livery. Not because Pan Am had any GP60Ms. The only railroad that has these GP60Ms was initially Santa Fe, and any that are still in service are now on the BNSF. So this is going to be a fantasy scheme. But with the wide cab, this looks really close to the GP40s, the Canadian versions of the GP40s that Pan Am got from the Canadian National. So I'm still going to have this shell, and I may still paint it into Pan Am livery at some point. The only problem being the mounting points for the GP60M shells require a GP60M frame. These don't line up with GP38 or GP40 frames, which I have a couple extra of those. So I might have to do something. I might have to fabricate a chassis because I don't really want to put any more money into it. But this guy's going to be used for some other project down the road. Get that off the bench. I actually started breaking this guy down. The shell that I bought this on eBay, and a couple things I need to do to it. Like a lot of these guys, you can kind of see the walkways are loose. I actually have removed these. I'll take the hand railings off so I can get access to these guys. But this side's a little bit loose as well. So what I'll do is I'll take these off. What happens over time, especially if these are exposed to a lot of temperature changes, the glue that they use, I think the brass must expand and contract, and eventually it just pulls the glue loose. So what I usually do is I sand that old crusty glue off of there, and there's any number of ways you can re-glue that. I tend to use just regular old tacky glue because it has a little bit of elasticity to it. It doesn't ever completely, it can be reactivated with water. Obviously, these are not going to get put in water, so it's not a concern. I'm not a huge fan of super glue for stuff like that because super glue, once it dries, is very, very brittle. And as you have that same expansion and contraction, if you store these things somewhere where it's hot and then cold, you're going to run into the same issues. This guy, it did not have any of the lighting features, so I had to move those over from the primered shell I just showed you. I got the headlight put in there. I could not get the ditch lights. This guy doesn't, if you look here, it does not have ditch lights in the ditch light housings. So I'll have to get a set of ditch lights, the just grain of wheat bulbs. I could not get them out of the gray primered shell. In fact, when I took them out, I broke both the wires. So I'll either buy some grain of wheat bulbs and wire those in, or I'll just buy a fresh set. I don't know how MTH sells them. I'll go on the website and get them. It does have the little pickup that mounts to the post. I need 2 pickups. I have extra pickups, so I'll grab one of those out of my parts bin. Needs another pickup for the headlight to connect to. But otherwise, I've tested this guy. It runs great, sounds great. I've already broken everything down. Got the trucks off of it. So obviously they're all in primer gray. I've got the pilots off of it. I had another set of pilots that were already painted black, which I thought I might be able to use on this, but I think those pilots are for like a GP7, GP9. So they don't quite line up with the GP60. Not a big deal. I'll spray paint these. The CSX pilots are pretty easy. They're black. with yellow accents on the steps. So that'll be real easy to do. And some yellow accents on the coupler cut bars. So we'll get those painted. Fuel tank, I also considered, I don't know why MTH did it this way. They went with a smaller fuel tank on this guy, which is interesting to me because most of these GP60s have full-size fuel tanks that that would be akin to what MTH puts on the GP40s and GP38s in their line. And I have extra fuel tanks, but on this chassis, the mounting points are different. So you can see here where the two mounting points for this shorter fuel tank are. I would have to actually drill out new fuel tank mounting points. And obviously, if I was going to go that route, I'd have to remove all the electronics and everything to avoid risking drilling through the chassis and into the board or through a wire or something like that. And it's just more work that I want to do for something like this. But I'm going to get this guy, get this stuff moved off the table, and I'm going to get a coat of black paint on all of these features tonight. And then I'll come back tomorrow after I've finished the painting, and we'll start putting this guy back together. The shell on this one comes off real easy. It's only 4 screws. So I'm going to get it put back together, and I will probably use the connections that I have, get the headlights hooked up. I'll probably have this thing, it'll run without ditch lights for a minute until I get the ditch lights in, but we should be able to get this thing all set up and knocked out pretty darn quick. I don't know how much, if at all, I will weather this one. That remains to be seen. You know, obviously CSX did not have any of these. It's in YN2 paint, so if it still was running in the modern day, it would be pretty crusty, but I don't know if I'm going to weather it or not. Along the lines of weathering, I just move these parts out of the way here. I did bring, if you go all the way back, and I will put, I'll put a link up in the upper corner of this video to when I got these. I bought a bunch of freight cars from an estate sale, and had the entire, I think it was 13 if I recall correctly, 13 total. And I bought them because I really wanted to keep 6 or 7. I weathered the ones that I wasn't interested in keeping and put those up for sale, and not a single one of them got bought. So I guess I ended up buying the entire lot. But I just went through and weathered this one. It's a 50-foot waffle side Boxcar Burlington Northern livery. Just finished this one up literally this morning. Spent a couple days weathering it. Really liked the way it turned out. I wanted to go with a look that had some wear and a little bit of rust, but not too destroyed or anything like that. Got some nice rust and whatnot on the roof, but really like the way this one turns out. I think it'll look good on the layout. In that lot of boxcars I was going to sell, that I ended up keeping was a Seaboard System 50-foot waffle boxcar. So this will look good running with that. But in any case, why don't I go ahead and start doing some work on these guys, and I'll bring you back when I'm ready to do the next step. Well, okay, here we go. All done. Ran into a couple things as I was doing this, but really happy with the way it turned out. I don't usually put snow plows on my Jeeps, but I am going to put a snow plow on the front of this one. Quite a bit of overhang on the front sill, and I think a snow plow will really kind of fill that out nicely. So like I mentioned, bought this shell off of eBay, and I wanted to mention a little trick. Whenever you see something on eBay, I've noticed, if you kind of put it in your favorites but don't purchase it, boy, I tell you, a lot of times those sellers will send you a reduced price offer, within a day or two. And I was kind of waffling between this CSX shell, a Conrail shell, and a Santa Fe War Bonnet shell. I do have one of these in Protosound 2 that's in the Santa Fe War Bonnet scheme. And while it would look nice to have 2 of these running as a double header, those shells were considerably more. I had a really hard time. I would have been spending as much money for the shell as I paid for the whole locomotive from the MTH warehouse sale, and I just had a problem with that. Kind of defeats the purpose. But this gentleman had this shell at a relatively decent price. I put it in my favorites basket, and then a day or two later, he sent me back an offer, and he had dropped the price like another $15. So I think I only ended up spending like $28 on this shell, which I felt was a really good deal. I could tell from the pictures. It was a brand new shell, probably came from one of the MTH warehouse sales as well. But it reiterated the point that it was brand new when I mounted it, because the screw, the screw buses that, the screws that go through the chassis to hold the shell on, they had never had any screws mounted in them. So getting the screws in for the first time, because they self-tap, was a little bit challenging, but we got that in. So got everything good to go on this guy. I'm gonna not weather it for now. I kind of like the way it looks, and we'll run it looking kind of new for a while. Make the decision as to whether or not I want to weather it. I don't know, but painted the yellow on the side steps, and put the red around the fuel loading caps and the little sight glasses on the fuel tank. One thing I noticed about these GP60Ms, most of these MTH products have a solid clear ABS plastic windshields. These guys just have acetate windshields in them, which is basically just like the thin clear plastic you get, in a package of Q-tips or toothbrushes or whatever. And when I went to kind of put this thing on, I noticed the front windshields were loose, so I popped those guys out and re-adhered them with some evergreen canopy glue. This stuff's real good if you ever have to use glue anything that's clear plastic. Again, most people will probably default to super glue. I don't recommend that for a couple reasons. The super glue will mar your clear plastic. It becomes very obvious. But as the super glue dries, it outgasses, and it leaves like a white residue on clear plastic. This canopy glue, this stuff's real nice. It starts off very it's very, very thin, so it flows real easy, but it sets up pretty quick. But it dries clear, doesn't leave any haze or film. So got the front windshields glued in. Everything looks great on this guy. I do have to program it. It has the standard MTH. I think it's an SD70 that they standard program the boards with. So this one's never been flashed. So I'll flash this. Like I mentioned previously, it doesn't have the ditch lights wiring. I got all the wiring and everything, but it doesn't have the actual lights, the actual bulbs for the ditch lights in there. So I do have to order a couple of those. Not the biggest deal. I'll get around to that. But yeah, it came a long way. Just replacing that shell from the primer gray one that the entire thing was primer gray. But just replacing that shell with this guy turned out real nice. Got the walkways glued down with some of that tacky glue that I mentioned. So those are nice and tight. But yeah, I think we got a really nice model. I think all told, with the price of the shell and the price of the overall unit that I got from the MTH warehouse sale, I'm into this guy for like $125 or $130. So for a 3-volt Protosound 2 unit, I think that's a pretty good amount to have invested. I'll never have any problems getting my money back out of this one if I decide to sell it down the road. But you guys know me. My plan is to run the doggy do out of this guy when I go up to the layout next, which will hopefully be this week. I'm going to get this one on the rails with some of my other CSX locos and put some miles and time on her. But yeah, fun little project. Got some other stuff on the workbench that I'm going to be starting up here. When the layout is up in Cleveland, but you live in Columbus, you find things to keep you busy, and there's never any shortage of maintenance or projects. So look for a video in the not too distant future. I've got a Protosound 3 locomotive that I want to do some work on, and I think I'm going to share that with you guys. Maybe you'll come across similar situations, and hopefully it'll be helpful for somebody. But spring is here. We've had some great weather this week, temperature-wise. Had a really nasty storm roll through last night with some hail, but the blossoms are on the trees, the ducks are outside in the pond, and it's been consistently in the 70s here in Central Ohio. So hopefully in your part of the world, the weather is taking a turn for the better as well. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for visiting us here at the Lake Erie and Midwestern. Happy railroading, everybody. Take care.